So this turned into a bit more of a schmozzle because Laura's got to bounce back and forth between PowerPoint and videos. So I'm going to introduce Laura right away, just to warn you. She tells me she's a little under the weather, so she's kind of scaled back her presentation so she doesn't have to do as much talking. And then we'll open it up to questions afterwards. But Laura from St. Michael's University's school, and Laura and I met at a very cool conference a couple of years ago called Fireworks Factory, put on by a couple of people who were with us early on at Beyond the Hype, Darren Barefoot and Julie Szabo. And those two actually were working with Laura when she put this presentation together. And we had a great time in Galliano Island. And then we followed it up with the next year with a conference on Pender Island. So this is turning into a nice thing. Darren and Julia come from all over the world, wherever they're living at the moment. They come back to do it. Yeah. And who knows where we'll be next year. So without going into any more details, I'll turn it over to Laura to talk about the best school year ever. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks. As Dave said, occupational hazard of working in a school. I come to you with a voice, and Norma, I'm going to speak a little bit just to let people get used to my voice and the fact that it's not very pleasant to listen to right now. Rest assured, I feel much better than I sound, and hopefully, your empathy for me won't, distract from the talk. I was really pleased when Dave asked me to do this because this is the fourth time I've been able to tell this story in a public forum. And Dave heard the first time. And when Dave heard it, it was still very much a story in being. And at this point, I'm able to bring you a little more comprehensive version of the story and put a little more reflection into it. And part of that reflection is in thinking of, okay, well, what does my story have to do with the subject of storytelling? And what are the big lessons that I can impart to you? And, one of my personal mottos is, when you can't be a role model, be a cautionary tale. and one of the things that I love about this story is it has elements of both. So just to frame what I'm going to tell you about, we all agree that storytelling is really powerful. I don't think there's anybody in the audience would say, nah, I don't have any time for that. But what happens when, we as communicators exercise a lot of control over the storytelling. So what happens if we actually let go of control and let others help us tell our story for us? So last year, St. Michael's University School embarked on a campaign that no other college or university prep school in North America had ever done before. And what we ended up doing was holding a contest in which we offered a year's boarding tuition, so that's a $50,000 tuition value, in exchange for students submitting videos and telling us their stories about what they saw in the school and why they thought it would be a good fit for them. So, as you can imagine, being the first time, the campaign was fraught with a lot of risks. And mostly it was because we didn't know what we were doing. there was no template for this at all whatsoever. So, the unfortunate part of the story is I'm going to tell this to you in 3 chapters. And the unfortunate part is the first chapter is a lot of expository. So there's going to be a lot of fact in the first section. I'll try and get through it as quickly as I can so as not to bore you. But it's important to know the context. So why would a school of our age and pedigree end up holding a contest? It's important that you know that. 2 is where it really gets interesting because that's where emotion starts to play. And that would be the contest itself. And I like to call that the wildest ride of my career so far. And then chapter 3 is finally the choice. And, what happened in the aftermath of the contest? How do we pick a winner? And what were the implications of that for us? So, I think you'll find at the end, things didn't quite go as we planned, but that wasn't a bad thing. We ended up learning a whole bunch of, there was value there. There was value there for all of us, and I think in the end the contest changed lives, and I would say my life was one of them. So here we go. Okay. The reason that we got here is because marketing boarding schools in North America today is really, really hard. And, you know, I'm sure that you all can think of a million reasons why the average student would not consider boarding school to be their first option for high school. But here are some of the things that we know. We know that sticker shock is a major issue, and that it tends to kill the conversation dead. Even though our school and schools like ours are extremely generous in the scholarships and the financial aid that we offer, and that can really cut down on the impact of a $50,000 per year tuition. When you say $50,000 per year, people go, oh, that's it. So you don't often get that opportunity to follow up with a, but wait, you know, there's tuition, there's financial aid, there's scholarship. I think the second issue that we run into is the image of granddad's boarding school just won't go away. And I've got a little story about this. Last week, there was a lovely alum in town, and I was visiting with him. And he was a boarder with us during grade school, when we did do grade school boarding, back in the late 1940s. And so he delighted in telling me the stories about how every morning they would be fed this thin porridge, and I think that's the definition of gruel. And how once a week, all the boys would have their weekly bath, sharing the same tub of water. I know. And so he's a tremendous supporter of the school today. We love him, but those stories kill us. They kill us because they bear no resemblance to what a modern day boarding facility looks like and what actually happens during the course of the day. So yeah, God bless you, Anthony, but stop with the stories. And then the other issue is that options are everywhere for a modern day high school student. You know, there has never been a better time to be in school. I wish I was in school right now, because there are so many educational options that are really tailored at specific interests and are trying to reach out and grab you and kind of take you to a place where it's never been possible to go before. So I think that's terrific. So all of you might be saying, given that, oh, wait, I forgot a key point. I gotta go back. And that's the size of the market. And, you know, up until a few years ago, we were operating quite blindly. And I say we because the consortium of boarding schools across North America tends to be a pretty close-knit group. There's about 300 of us that belong to an organization called the Association of Boarding Schools. And TABS did us the great favor a couple of years ago of conducting an extensive study on how many North American students go to boarding school anyway. And when they gave us the numbers, I just about dropped dead, because the figure is, and I'll share this with you in broad terms, there are 35 million students between the ages of 14 and 17 in North America today. 30,000 of those go to boarding school. And that is, mind you, distributed between about 300 boarding schools in North America. So for those of you who are mathematically inclined, that percentage figure is 0.01%. My target market is 0.01% of the population. And if that's not bad enough, they're everywhere. They're not all in San Francisco. They are scattered in pockets all over the place. So that makes them really hard to reach. And it also makes, you know, you might not realize this, but it makes the market hotly competitive. I'll call them my sister schools, up island, that would be Shawnigan Lake and Brentwood College. We are fighting cats and dogs over the same applicant pool year after year after year, and we have been. And so, you know, maybe you would say, okay, well, why do it? You know, St. Mike's is a big school. You've got a big day population. Do you really need boarding? Well, you know, and depending on your perspective, you know, one of the possibly lamest reasons for continuing boarding is that we've always been a boarding school. And, you know, one of the things you might not know is when we opened in 1906, we were the only boarding school, the only, you know, classical British prep boarding school in BC. And the whole purpose of opening the school was to kind of staunch the bleeding of our fine young men from BC to parts east. And I say fine young men because we didn't go co-ed until 1978. So it's really hard-baked into the blood. And, you know, I was just at Upper Canada College last week doing a tour and talking to a fellow there, and he said, you know, a couple years ago, UCC actually did make the decision to quit boarding, pull it. And there was such a hue and cry from the alum because they just saw it as this, you know, rock solid tradition that was going away, that UCC decided not to do it. So, you know, one is kind of a bad reason to continue, but we've got other good reasons. One of those would be boarding. In our program, we find that boarding gives a wonderful texture to our community. You know, we've got 20 countries represented in boarding, and that totally impacts the day-to-day experience of our kids in the classrooms, and we think that's wonderful. Second, we actually really believe in the benefit of a boarding school education. You know, there is, and we believe this utterly, there's no better preparation for success at university than spending a year or two in a boarding school. And actually, I wish myself I'd had the opportunity. I'd have a lot more discipline today. But I think the other thing is that our boarding program is a key economic asset for us. You know, we are able to build the facilities that we build and offer a lot of the programs that we offer to all of our students because we have that tuition coming in. So it's pretty important. Now, this is where, excuse me, I'm just gonna take a bit of sip. Okay, so I've established the context. Tough market, hard to crack, kids are everywhere, and there's not that many of them. So, you know, we have been kind of obsessing over years on how to grow this and how to reach out to more of those kids who just won't give boarding a second thought. So, you know, social media has always been of interest because of its ability to sort of get at small communities in different places. And, you know, back in 2011, I was not what I considered a social media expert. I'm one of those people of the age that it kind of went, so I did a lot of playing, but never really kind of felt at home or at ease in that, which is, sorry, Dave, why I didn't tweet the conference. Sorry. So what I did is I just hired people who did know what they were doing, and I hired Capulet Communications to help us craft a social media strategy. Little did I know that small decision would change the course of my life forever. So one of the things I really love about Julie and Darren is they're very well read, and they really make a priority of keeping up on the marketing literature and the social media literature that's out there, and they like to bring that back into their work. And so one of the things that they did in our report that I really loved is they laid out the recommendations in what they called heartbeat activities versus remarkables, and that comes from Seth Godin's Purple Cow. And his idea is that in order to keep touch and just, you know, keep that day-to-day conversation going with your tribe, because that's what they call it, that's a little cool for me, but with your tribe, you need to do certain heartbeat activities. But if you ever want to grow your tribe and reach out to a whole new segment of people, it really takes a remarkable to do that. And so, you know, they gave us all sorts of great ideas, but kind of embedded in this report was this one little nugget. And what they said was, actually, let me just see if this is worth reading out. No, it isn't, but I will summarize it. What they said is, you should have a best school year ever contest. And what they cited was the 2009 Tourism Queensland Best Job in the World contest, where, yeah, I heard a, So we all know that contest. We all know how different it was and the impact that it had. And Capulet says, you know, you can never underestimate the possibility of, you know, a great social campaign where a really good prize is attached. And they thought we had both of those things going for us and that we'd be able to pull it off. And, you know, I can remember reading that idea and saying, that is awesome, but that'll totally never fly. There is no way I'm pitching that to my head. So, what happened is for the next 2 years, and literally the next 2 years, I would pluck the report out periodically. I'd land on this idea and I go, oh, that is so awesome, but that'll never work. And then suddenly, 2013 came along and I plucked the report out again and I started thinking, I think we're actually in a different place right now. And I think it might fly. And there are a few reasons for that. We had a new strategic plan. We're focused on innovation. Check. Everything that we had been doing to date, our results have always been good, but not great. Like we're not sort of plowing new territory when it comes to boarding. So, the tried and true is really starting to look tired. And then finally, the intense competition that we're experiencing with other boarding schools, I think generally increased our appetite for risk, and we were ready to do something new and a little bit risky. So, I would love to say, I marched in, said, Bob, you totally have to do this. Here's why. And he goes, you're right, Laura. What happened was I presented the shell of an idea, and he went, And I realized at that point there wasn't enough detail attached to it. We hadn't fleshed it out enough for him to be able to kind of work through okay, well, what would it look like? How would it work? So what I did get from him is I got permission to hire Capulet again on spec, just strictly for the purposes of fleshing out what the contest would look like. And here's what we did when we got together again. We proposed that we would have a grand prize of full year boarding tuition with 2 runner-up prizes of $10,000 scholarships each. We would have it open to North American students only, and the reasons for that are more practical than, yes, we're interested in North American students as a target in particular, but also when you run a contest, lawyers have to be involved, and for every jurisdiction, you need to have your rules and regulations vetted. So, that was a very practical consideration. An entry consists of a 3 to 5 minute video and your last 2 report cards that would be uploaded to a contest website. And then 30 semifinalists, that's a big number, but we had a reason for that. 30 semifinalists will be invited to complete a full application, and our usual application fees would be waived. And then finally, 3 finalists would be invited for an all-expense paid trip to campus for a full set of interviews. Now, a couple of significant things. The video was key, and Capulet sort of pointed back to the reason Tourism Queensland was so successful in their contest is that people contributing their entry videos really started to tell the story about why Tourism Queensland was a great place to be. And so that, just that process sort of in and of itself kind of did the promotion for it. And it also helped with the virality because people are posting these to their own YouTube account and, it's spreading exponentially. So, that was a key component of the contest that we were hoping that would happen for our own as well. The 30 semifinalists is a high number. Our hope was that by having students complete the full application, that we could get a better look at them and actually do a full assessment on, is this a student that we actually think would do well in this school? And we could actually make them an offer and possibly talk about a different sort of scholarship. So that's why we made that number so high. But wait, there's more. And this was a particular piece of brilliance on Capulet's part. I wish I could take credit. But Capulet recognized that we had some star power in our alumni universe. And they said, what you guys need to do is you need to assemble an all-star alumni panel and make them part of the judging process somehow. We knew that we probably couldn't ask Steve Nash to sort through 30 of our applications and make a choice for us about who should have the best school year ever. But what we did was to kind of make them almost a ceremonial part of the process. They would be after the assessment done by us, and it would be a more informal discussion and really more of a chance for kids to have an exciting connection and experience with somebody who they might admire. So here's just a selection of some of the alums that we were able to dig out. And it's a really good panel. I was quite pleased when we pulled it together. So, once we did this and presented this back to Bob, that was enough for him. He said, okay, I love it. Let's go for it. Now, this was mid-November. And when he said that, I had presumed that he meant, okay, great, we're going to tee this up for a September launch. And, I'm making noises to that effect. And he said, wait, no, we need to do this right away. We need to launch as soon as we possibly can. And in this, I think I was a victim of my own success, because he became so convinced of the brilliance of the idea that he felt that other people would do it if we didn't. So he wanted us to get on it as soon as we possibly could. So that's why I called this slide, "The contest is on," a very aggressive schedule. And bless Darren and Julie, but in 8 weeks, we managed to go from nowhere to launch ready. And this just gives you an indication of all of the elements that were involved. This was, bar none, this was the largest and most ambitious campaign in terms of the integration of activities that we had ever done. So it was quite the thing. All of us worked over holidays. Thank you, Bob. Thank you for the loss of Christmas. Not that I'm bitter. We worked our butts off to make sure that we were ready. And by January 15th, by some miracle, we were. And here was the focal point of the contest. This is a snapshot of our website. And I'm just going to show you the video that we did to launch the contest. That one. Oh, what happened to my video? Oh, here it is.
When you enter the Best School Year Ever contest, you could be the lucky student to win a full-year scholarship to study and live at St. Michael's University School.
It's a life-changing experience. We got a beautiful campus located in Victoria, BC, with some great coastal weather.
And if you're interested in outdoor activities, you've got hiking on the Juanifica Trails, surfing in Tofino, and skiing in Mount Washington.
Welcome to my house, Bolton. I've been a proud Bolton Penguin for 2 years now.
When you come into boarding, you form an instant family.
We're all just a group of brothers and sisters. From there, you can become a part of our larger community. We got 70 clubs, councils, musical opportunities, and theater.
We've also got 24 competitive sports teams as well as intramurals and leadership opportunities all year round.
You can also take part in service trips or study abroad opportunities to places like India, where Cal and I got to study it.
If you're interested in digging a well,
Or shooting that game-winning shot,
this is the place for you.
And of course, you'll be challenged by our strong academic program. But don't worry, we've got teachers like Mr. Geddes to help you out.
Teachers at SUMO are at very close proximity. Speaking of which, Mr. Geddes is my brother house parent in Winslow House, so he's always available for late night pre-calculus sessions.
You'll work hard, experience stress, and maybe even feel homesick from time to time. But you'll be surrounded by so much support and friendships that in the end, all you'll remember is that it was so much fun. The best school year ever.
If you're a finalist, you will have the opportunity to be interviewed by some of our all-star alumni, including Steve Nash. Believe me, this is going to be the best school year ever. So go, make your video, and we'll see you next year.
I think it's okay. No? Oh no. Damn you, autoplay. Sorry. I have to turn off our Christmas assembly. Okay. I'm losing momentum, man.
I think maybe this just got.
Oh, really?
That's my
Okay.
thought.
You know, the second part doesn't need slides, so I'm going to continue while they fuss. Oh, that's great. Thank you. So, you know, the launch period felt like the work, right? It felt like, okay, we launch, and then we just sit and wait for it to roll right in. And then glory and victory is mine. Well, ours. But, you know, it didn't quite turn out that way. And, you know, one of the things that I found really curious and really surprising leading up to the contest launch was the sudden demonstration of keen interest and passion on the part of our faculty. And I have to tell you that in my 9 years at St. Michael's University School, the faculty sort of always treated me a little bit like a necessary evil. Educators and marketing do not always sync, right? They just kind of think I'm here to taint the what they do. But so I've been mostly tolerated, but you know, any attempts that I've made in the past to kind of involve them in campaigns really fell flat. So basically I stopped trying. But then Bob suggested that I give them the presentation that I gave him and tell them, okay, here's what we're doing, but more importantly, here's why we're doing it. And I did. And when you know, just giving them a little context seemed to really ignite something in them that I didn't know existed, because suddenly after that, I had people rushing up to me saying, that is the best idea I've ever heard. I'm so excited. How can I help? And I thought, I'm dreaming. I'm dreaming. So we quickly put together a cheat sheet about here's how you can help promote the contest, because suddenly I had this army of people who were willing to help spread the word. And you know, that I think was the hardest part, because suddenly I felt indebted to these people. And I felt sort of, okay, well, I need to report out. I've got a little tribe here, and I need to keep them abreast of what's going on. And you know, I was conscious that you know, the news might not be immediately good, and that I had to kind of tread a careful line between telling them the absolute bald truth and being candid and open, and holding my cards in a little bit, so that I didn't alienate them and get them all cynical, going, well, I told you it was a stupid idea. So you know, one of the great things that came out of this is that I wrote a series of update emails. And you know, I was reviewing them the other day, and I realized there's no better way to tell the story of the contest period than to read you a selection of my update emails. So here we go. January 22nd, subject line, best first week ever. You'll get so sick of that line. Dear SMU colleagues, it's been 1 week since we launched the Best School Year Ever contest, and the word is spreading throughout North America, thanks in large part to your help. It goes on, but I'm only giving you snippets. Contest update, January 30th. Dear SMU colleagues, it's been over 2 weeks since we launched the Best School Year Ever contest, and although we're still waiting on pins and needles for our coveted first contest entry, I can tell you that the word is continuing to spread. Contest update, January 17th. Dear colleagues, it's been just over 4 weeks since we launched the Best School Year Ever contest. And yes, I'm still waiting on pins and needles for the entry dam to burst and for a flood of videos and report cards to come in, exclamation point. Am I nervous? I'll admit I'd be happier to see the activity ramping up sooner rather than later, but I'm still expecting to be knee-deep in entries by the last week of the contest. How about that for, you know, and I'm not an upbeat, positive person, so in the background, you know, you can picture me. I am always the think the worst. And so in the background as I'm writing this with my chipper exclamation points, I'm going, I am screwed. So that leads to February 21st. Subject line, best week yet. Dear colleagues, I am thrilled to report that we received our first official entries through the contest website this week, and that we have had contact with a number of students who have stated their intention to enter. Now, the subtext behind that message is that it was 2 entries, and both were ineligible. So, at this stage, I'm absolutely dying inside every day and wanting to avoid anybody who has the remotest possibility of saying, how's it going? Because I just, I'm starting to run out of, great, it's going great. So spring break comes up, and I have the respite of having the majority of people off campus, and the contest was going to end when people were off. So I sent them one last email on March 13th. Subject line, best school year ever home stretch. Dear colleagues, by the time we all get together again on April 1st, our best school year ever contest will have closed and results will be in. I'm very excited to see what the next 2 weeks will bring. And I was hoping that would be entries. Okay. And I suppose after that setup, you're dying to know. Let's fast forward. Dear colleagues, the Best School Year Ever contest closed last Monday at midnight, and I know that many of you have been anxious to know how many entries we received. Let me admit now that I spent much of the contest period feeling that I had made the worst career move ever, in caps. The pace of entries was slow, in spite of the very encouraging level of activity we were seeing on the website and social media. And that was true. We were tracking throughout. And we were seeing volume, we were seeing attention, we were seeing eyeballs. Just wasn't translating immediately into entries. During the first week of spring break, I attended a talk Ann Makazinski gave to Island Women in Tech. Robin was there. I was sitting next to her. During the talk, Ann told the group that, quote, being a teenager, I submitted my entry to the Google Science Fair in the last hour. I then realized that if my best hopes might not be realized, and our best hopes, by the way, we're talking in the realm of 500 entries, I realized that neither would my worst fears. Bob had also assured me throughout that our entries would come at the last minute, and sure enough, we received the majority of our entries in the last 24 hours of the contest. You guys kill me, you kids. When the dust settled, and we called the entries that didn't meet eligibility requirements, like the first 2, or were incomplete, we had 46 viable contest entries. Yay, victory! We could hold a contest. At this point, I became less fixated on the number and was excited by other aspects of the entries. And keep in mind, I'm reading an email to my colleagues here. And so what I did to try and illustrate why I was excited, and I actually was excited, I was excited that it wasn't a total bust. We had a respectable number of entries in order to conduct the contest. But here's what really got me going. And this is the entries mapped out all over Canada and the US. And this part is totally new. We never, almost never get inquiries from Eastern and Southern United States. So we had a bit of a breakthrough moment, and I was pretty excited about that. So going back to the email, the second aspect that thrills me is the applications are very, very good. Paul Leslie, our Director of Admissions, he did a thorough review of the eligible entries with the task of eliminating those he felt would have trouble meeting our admissions standards. We were left with 38 excellent candidates. So what ended up happening is sort of a parallel to what we saw in the boarding market, right? Kids were sort of self-selecting, but we did end up getting fabulous entries. And we were actually starting to see the advantage of having others help us tell the story. And I'm going to show you one young man. And I'll just play the first 2 minutes. He opted to go for the full 5, which is so like him. Oops.
Hi, Aaron. Tell us about yourself. How you doing? Thanks for having me on the show.
course.
So, my name is Aaron Photo. It's a name that's not very complicated at all. It's actually from a small West African country called Togo, and what it means is God bless. And I truly believe this because my parents came from under a village, and by the grace of God, they were able to come out and immigrate to the United States, and they had me. And they went through so many struggles. They brought me up, and just let me realize that this is an opportunity to be in the United States. So I took it very seriously, and throughout the years, I studied very hard, and now I'm doing very well in high school, doing amazing things to get back to work, especially from
Thank you. It's very touching. What sets you apart from other
I
people?
think what sets me apart is that I'm a go-getter. When I want something and when I see a problem, I react. And this is evident in some of the things I've been doing. When I was in about like in ninth grade, freshman year, I traveled to Africa over the summer and we did mission meetings there. We talked. I saw my dad's village. I played the trumpet. I played in their gospel band. It was a really cool experience.
Yeah, that must have been quite a fun time. Why would you be a great addition to the student body of St. Michael's University School?
I really love the school. When I saw a video of it on YouTube, I just said that this is an amazing school. And what they really focus on are the different cultures and the leadership and community service aspect of learning. And that is a broader sense of learning. Education is the most powerful tool that you can use to change the world, said Nelson Mandela. And I think that really, I really do accept those values that SMUS has put into their workload. So I'd love to be there.
So, and that's just a selection of some of the videos that we got, and a lot of them were astounding and awesome, but can you imagine the experience of hearing somebody that you don't know and has never been on your radar before tell you about your school and what they love about your school and why they want to be there? Magical experience, and I hate that word, so just know that I'm using it because it really was. Okay, everybody's just holding their breath, I can tell. All right, yeah, victory. Okay, so, you know, one of the things that we didn't anticipate in running the contest was a lot of the process and procedure things. Like, how do you go from, 30 awesome kids to selecting 3? And, I was running the thing and really hadn't given a thought to, okay, we need a rubric of how to select. You know, we need a team assembled who can help us select. So that's what we ended up doing. We ended up drafting selection criteria. We drafted a team from our faculty to help us. Now, 30 was hard, so we, as a little small internal team, pared it down to the top 10 and then presented the top 10 and asked our faculty to then help us out. And so they did help us out. And this is who they ended up choosing. And I know that you're all sad that Aram wasn't on the list. I was devastated because Aram was my #1 pick throughout the process, but he didn't make it in the end. The faculty said, he's too good. he's going to be a superstar no matter where he goes. You know, what opportunity do we have to leave our print on Aram, because he's awesome. Anyway, so this group is who we picked, and this was an awesome group too. If you go to YouTube and look up Best School Year Ever SMU, you can find these videos, and you can see why they were chosen. These are great kids. Now, again, we reached a turning point in making the choice of the 3. And we said, okay, we didn't really think this through about the visit. You know, we had kind of anticipated, we'll just book people to come in and, we'll book them when they're available. But said, wait a minute, we have a great opportunity here to really capture the swell of enthusiasm that's going on and make a really big event out of this. So we decided then and there, with 1 week to make this happen, that We were going to do a mass interview event and try and bring all 3 families in at the same time. Now, Silka, who's the middle girl there, happened to be on exchange in France. But I am pleased to say, through some magic that I probably can't even talk about, we did get her on campus, and the whole visit was awesome. So again, this is the last video that I'm going to show you, but it really does capture the flavor of what that day was like. As well as introduces the 3 of them to you. Oh, damn it. Thank you.
The moment we arrived here, the school treated us as someone of importance, and I feel very good about that because I felt we were someone important here and they wanted to meet us.
Well, the whole process has been just a really eye-opening experience, and I feel that it's given me a lot of confidence and shown just exactly what I'm capable of. I think overall it's just really unbelievable. It's really crazy to think that just 2 weeks ago I was in Texas, like uploading my video, and then a week after that I was shortlisted, and then a week after that they were like, oh, come to Victoria.
That is how short
5 days. And so I guess it's really just been really unbelievable, and I'm so happy to be here. I'm so shocked. It's just really encouraging to see how they value students, and yeah, it's unlike anything I've experienced before.
Okay, now I know that the climax of the story should be, and we chose. But really for me, that was the climax of the story. And I'm going to share just one more email that I wrote at the end of that visit at 7:30 at night on a Saturday. And I titled it, My Best Day at Work Ever. Hello, colleagues. As you know, we have just reached another milestone in the Best School Year Ever contest. Our finalist families are starting to make their way home after a whirlwind 48-hour visit to Victoria. When Paul, Keith, and I left them this afternoon, they were exhilarated and effusive in their thanks for the warm welcome they received from our community. And now it's my turn to be effusive in my thanks. When we chose our finalists and started on the visit phase of this project, I realized just how little I had thought through to this point. I had an intense deer-in-headlights moment last week before my colleagues in admissions realized how out of my element I was and immediately mobilized to pick up my slack. They created the game plan and helped recruit the cast of dozens who were instrumental in pulling off the family visit. To a large degree, I expected this help, but what I didn't expect was that such a strong contingent of our students and staff would also have the same sixth sense about their assistance being required. As a result, I was able to experience the finalist visit from the perspective of our families and can tell you all that our school and our community is amazing. The families told me they had never felt so at home, and I have lots and lots of stories of big and small acts of kindness wherever we went yesterday. I am ending the day today feeling incredibly privileged to call you my colleagues and smooth my professional home. Thank you. Being part of this community is an honor. I can't tell you enough how impressed I am by all of you. With gratitude, Laura. So, in the end, what we ended up doing was posting to our website, found 3 amazing high school students, even though our tagline was wanted, 1 amazing high school student. And I think what we realized is they're all great, and we want them. We want them here. So then began the process of making sure that we got them. Now, I'm moving into the epilogue, and you're probably all dying to know what actually happened. We offered the full year scholarship to Santiago. And Santiago was, and this was a hard choice because they were all great. But Santiago just had this spark of life in him that I thought would lend itself really well to the job of spoke student, which came as part of the whole contest package. So we ended up choosing him, but we also wanted the other two. And so what we ended up doing was bumping up the runner-up prize to a $20,000 scholarship offer for each of them, and then just worked really hard with both families to say, is that enough? You know, what do we need to do to get you here? So I'm happy to report that when school opened in September, all 3 students showed up for registration, and they are currently just about to finish their first term of school. And right now, the contest for 2015, because yes, we are running it again, and it's on right now, and they are acting as spoke students for the second round of that contest. There's a couple of fringe benefits that came out of the contest as well, and one of those was Libby, and Libby was another one of my personal top 3, and she was just a spark of a girl from Ontario, and we ended up offering her a $10,000 scholarship just as part of being the top 10, and I was so happy in September when Libby ended up showing up as well. But a couple of the people that got away, Shivani, a great young student from Manitoba, we did offer her a $10,000 scholarship as well. The family thought long and hard about it, but decided that they were going to continue where they were. And then finally, there's Aram, and Aram is a bit of a special case. One, because he was the only student during the period of the contest that ever phoned me to ask me a question, and he had impeccable telephone manners. So I was quite taken with Aram right from the beginning. And originally we offered him a $10,000 scholarship as well, and he said, you know what, I think I'm going to continue. He was going into grade 12. I'm going to do my last year here in Delaware. But late in the game, in the summer, beginning of August, he calls me up one day and says, Laura, I've developed an online friendship with Silka and Alessandra and Santiago, and after talking to them, I really regret my decision. I'm thinking that I'd like to come. Is it still possible? And I said, Aram, I'll see if I can make it possible. So what happened was a whole fluster and flurry of activity, and I'm sorry to say we did not make it possible. However, Aram continues to be a faithful pen pal to this day. He emails me regular updates, and because of our continuing relationship, as we speak right now, Aram's just wrapping up 3 days at a youth conference in Kansas City with delegates from all over the United States. I sent him postcards for the contest, and he agreed to actually promote the contest at that. So bless him. He's marvelous, and I know he'll do well, and I'm just happy to have met him. So, in wrapping it up, gosh, I mean, what did I learn? I think the contest ended up confounding my expectations in so many ways. I didn't think that we would get so few entries. I really didn't think that would be the result. I didn't expect that we'd be able to satisfy so many of our requirements with those so few entries, so that was great. I didn't expect to see such a breakthrough in the eastern U.S. and in the southern United States, so that was great. I didn't expect to become so emotionally engaged in these kids' stories. In my job, I don't interact with kids a lot, and so I can be sort of this removed distance, but suddenly I was just a weeping mess through most of it, going, oh, that's such a beautiful story. Oh my God, I want to give that guy a scholarship. So I didn't expect for them to really hit me and those stories to hit me the way they did, but I guess apparently I'm human, and they did. And then I certainly didn't expect and didn't anticipate the hard role that I had, which was to call those 30 kids and say, I know this was really important to you, but this dream isn't going to happen for you this year. And that was a heartbreaking experience. I call myself the crusher of young dreams. But of all these things that I didn't expect, they actually ended up making my experience of the whole contest so much richer. And I have to say that when I look back on it now, I can truly say that I just had my best year at work ever. So thank you very much. Oh, sorry.
My name's Lori. I'm just wondering, what kind of tactics did you use to get the word of the contest out there?
We had used kind of an extensive layer of social media campaign, online advertising, as well as email. And there are certain organizations that we belong to and through which we have membership, where we got access to email lists, for example, that were very useful, that allowed us to directly contact a group of kids. Probably one of the most successful tactics that ended up falling into our lap is one of our alums who had heard about the contest said, I have a relationship with this honor society in the United States, and they have a database of 200,000 kids in the US, and they'd be willing to send an email for you. And I just went, I love you, Doug. I love you. So that actually ended up being the most successful tactic, because we had a lot of students actually referencing their membership in that honor society through the contest.
Did you have any parents or any students contact you to get information about the school, or who've now attended the school that were part of the contest? Like, did it grow your reach in terms of your school?
Yeah, it did. I mean, it's grown our reach. One of the things that I'm pleased to report, and I cannot attribute this to the contest, but for the purposes of this session and the feeling of magic that I'm wanting to project in the room, I will. We had the best recruitment year in 5 years for admissions, and we saw inquiries and applications up in general. So yeah, I think I do attribute some of that activity, at least, to what people were seeing and hearing, because we floated that thing as far and wide as we could in many different venues. And not only did we get the boarding students I mentioned, but I didn't mention we got kind of a strong contingent of entrants from Victoria. And I didn't mind having entrants from Victoria, but I wanted to make sure that they knew it was a boarding contest, and the whole point was that you had to live in boarding and kind of experience it, and then report back out to the world about what it's really like. And so they said, yeah, I agree, I'll do that. So it worked out. But when none of them ended up being in the final three, we ended up getting 4 of those students as day students. So.
Can you share anything about the budget for it? Like,
yeah.
Prize aside, for shooting your initial video, any marketing campaign policy, you had to do anything like that?
We did the entire thing on a budget of $65,000. So, which I didn't even need new budget for it. We had been doing a series of advertisements in the Globe and Mail the previous year, and all I did was stop advertising in the Globe and Mail and shifted everything over to the campaign.
So did you take printout ads to push the campaign as well, or was it all?
No, it was all online, email. Although, you know what, I did take out one $10,000 Globe and Mail ad right at the beginning. But, that was more in the spirit of something else that we were trying to promote as well. So, I like to split the costs of that. But, it was a really reasonable campaign. I think the more murky aspect of it, and this is an issue with universities and colleges as well, is the discounted tuition. We kind of know roughly what it is to actually house and clothe and feed and educate a boarding student. So we know the real cost. But, what are we going to gain in the end? And we need to make sure that we have a nice balance of both people who are here on scholarship, as well as people who can afford to contribute to those scholarships to make sure that they're continuing to be there. So, we're in a kind of a nice balancing act where it's a little bit tricky, but God love the scholarship students, because you never see anybody who are as thrilled to be there and who are as into it as them. They just lap up every moment.
How are you planning to, grow and continue the story? Because you're doing it again this year, but are you going to maintain the same campaign over, or are you going to try to maybe shift the stories, or will the unique stories of the applicants be enough to keep it kind of relevant and current year over year?
That is such an awesome question. And, we anticipated that the value of the contest itself would grow over time, because the awareness would grow. However, it's interesting to note when you look back to Tourism Queensland, that didn't quite happen for them. It seemed like a little bit of a flash in the pan, and then it fizzled a bit. So we're running it again this year. We're using a lot of the same tactics. We have something that we didn't have last year. Actually, we have two things we didn't have last year. We've got a dedicated email list. So we've been running, since the contest closed, we've had a sign up to our email list, and we'll notify you when the contest opens again. So now we have a dedicated email list of people who are interested in hearing from us. But we also have contest winners. And whereas the first year it was totally theoretical, right now we've got these kids and we can showcase what they're doing. And really that's where the payoff will come, I think, is how good a job we do in showcasing their activities and telling the boarding story.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Laura.
You did it.
Thank you, Laura. Yeah, this is and thanks to Laura for being here above and beyond, I think. That was good.